And then the pressure cooker, the Instant Pot, hit the market in 2016. And my book publishers and agent really wanted me to translate all of my slow cooker recipes to pressure cooker recipes. And
Okay.
and so I bought one and I goofed around with it and I just hated it. I don't like it.
Welcome to Mindset Mastery with Julissa Edwards, the podcast dedicated to helping high performers unlock their true potential and cultivate a powerful mindset for success. I'm your host, Julissa Edwards, a mindset coach and advocate for healthy high performance. Join me on this transformative journey as we delve into strategies, insights, and inspiring conversations with experts and thriving high performers. Get ready to master your mindset, elevate your performance, and create a life of purpose and fulfillment. Let's dive in.
Okay, so welcome back to another interview style episode for Mindset Mastery with Julissa Edwards. Today we have the honor of interviewing Stephanie Odea. She is a New York Times best-selling author and host of the Slow Living podcast. She helps busy people meet and exceed their personal and professional goals without hustle or hype, but instead in a slow, steady, and sustainable way. This woman truly is an embodiment of what she preaches, slow living. She has a beautiful story to share with us on our episode today of how she got to where she is in life, why she's so anchored in on her ideology and beliefs behind slow living, what it's done for her and her family, and how she continues to help and mentor others in the same fashion. If you are a busy bee, go, go, go kind of person, which honestly, if you're listening to this, you probably are. Um, and this episode is most definitely for you. So yeah, enjoy. Stephanie, thank you for being here. I'm excited for the conversation. How are you feeling this morning?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So Stephanie and I met. She was one of the judges over on The Blocks, an entrepreneurial competitive TV show where we learned so much, and I had such immense gratitude for being connected with someone and learning from you. So we figured, why not bring her on the podcast and have her share her expertise on everything that she stands for, which with my audience is very much needed. So I call my audience healthy high performers. We are individuals who strive to do the best, type A leaders, all of that, looking to master our mindset. And I do reinforce, having a balanced lifestyle. But I think you can probably just hone in on that messaging even more and give us some really amazing insight. So I'm excited to have you here today.
Great. All right. We are speaking each other's language. That is awesome.
Yeah. So, can you tell us a little bit more about your journey? Have you always had this nice cadence in your life where you had good balance and perspective? Did you learn this the hard way? What made you so passionate about slow living?
Sure. So, thank you. That's a great question. I haven't actually been asked it in that way before. Um, I am a bit of an introvert
Okay.
and I'm a Gen Xer who was sort of raised with boomer parents, obviously, and had that work hard, hustle. The harder you work, the harder you'll be rewarded kind of upbringing and
Sure.
childhood. And then when I became a mom of my own, so my children are older. I've got one in grad school. She's 22. I have a 19-year-old who's a sophomore in college. And then my quote unquote baby is 14 and she's graduating
Mm,
eighth grade. Um, but I could already tell as kind of a young wife and mother, I didn't want to sort of perpetuate that go, go, go. You have to be the best mentality on my kids. I have a
mm,
background in child development and psychology, and I used to run preschool centers for homeless children. And I could tell there was always this frenetic, I'm behind feeling that when the clientele had, but then also the children had at a very young age. And so I really didn't want that for my kids. So I always sort of had this mentality of I was going to raise future healthy adults, not just raising children. And so I had that mentality. And as far as writing and coaching and teaching about slow living, it came in a very backwards way that I actually started writing about the crock pot, the slow cooker. And that's because at the time I was taking my kids to work with me. I was very fortunate, like on paper, everything looked great. I was running preschool centers. They could come to work with me. But the baby at the
Mm.
time was getting sick. She's totally fine now. She's my 19-year-old, but she was getting sick and vomiting sporadically, and we couldn't figure it out. So I quit my job on the spot to kind
Wow.
of take care of her.
Of
and
course.
and it worked out great, except for we live in San Francisco, so this is the Silicon Valley area. Things cost a lot of money. We had a very high
Sure.
mortgage, and my husband's like, yeah, so you do have to work. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna find a way to make a legitimate income at home while taking care of my babies. And so I started a
Mm.
crock pot site, a slow cooker site, and it took off because this was the earlier days of the internet, and
Yeah.
my site was one of the first crockpot sites. Um, Went great. Wrote some books. Hit the New York Times bestsellers list. Got to do national TV and lots of super fun things while staying home with my kids. And then the pressure cooker, the Instant Pot, hit the market in 2016. And my book publishers and agent really wanted me to translate all of my slow cooker recipes to pressure cooker recipes. And
Okay.
so I bought one and I goofed around with it, and I just hated it. I don't like it. I get it. I get why
Yeah.
other people like it. But for me, in my brain and my body, I wanted to put my food
Mm.
on early in the morning, still caffeinated, still coherent, push a button, walk away, and never think about it again. I most deaf
Mm.
have decision fatigue and all of that stuff. So I loved cooking while I still wanted to. Um,
Sure.
so yes, the technology is there that you can cook a frozen chicken in 45 minutes at 5 o'clock at night, but I did not want to do that. So I
Mm.
kind of balked at my publishers and literary agent. I'm like, yeah, so I don't want to do that. Um, and so I pitched them the idea of slow living, and they said no, stay in your own lane, and I got fired.
Really?
Yes. So
Wow.
yeah, so that's how it all came about. I have this kind of like, I'm gonna do it the way I want to do it then mentality. So I started the Slow Living podcast, and I started writing and coaching on my own. And then that too ended up garnering an audience. And so then I found a different publishing house. And then I got to meet
Wow.
you. So that's how Slow Living came about.
That, okay, so I have so many questions and I love all of your pivots. I think it took a lot of bravery, but mostly what I'm hearing and feeling is that it had to be authentic to truly what you stand for. And I was like, how ironic that a slow cooker was really like, I mean, it's your branding. I mean, it's exactly what you stand for, and how even the term pressure cooker, it's like, that doesn't sound nice.
Well,
You
so I
know?
do think that we already sort of intrinsically are living in this pressure cooker society. And I
For
think
sure.
people can feel it. They can feel the
Mhm.
frenzied energy. It doesn't feel good in your brain and your body. And like you kind of intuitively know this is wrong, but then you also feel like you have to keep up. So you have no choice and you have to kind of do something. And if there was a way that I could just hug all of you and tell you there is you like you can press Control Alt
Mm.
Delete and kind of have a reset, a factory reset, and realize, okay, this isn't healthy for me. This isn't healthy for my family. It's not how I want to
Mm.
live. And let's find a way to be aligned. The way you talk about of
Yeah,
finding the balance that feels good for you. And the balance for you is not maybe what the balance is for the lady down the street. Um,
absolutely.
yeah, because we are not in a one size fits all world, even though marketers and social media and do these 5 things and you too will have rock star abs. That's marketing hype.
Yeah, so wow, I have so many wonderful questions to ask. Okay, so I love your multifaceted background because so another part of my business too is to help mothers, and we connected over that. And so, I mean, that is so essential for mamas. There's so much information being thrown at us for like how to raise your babies, how to do this right, and all the things. And I think any mom, her greatest desires is to, raise a happy, healthy, grounded child that's going to be able to make their own decisions based on their own intuition, and just have a really strong North Star for when life gets complicated because life will get complicated, right? And so, how do we do that? We have to model that. Right? A lot of mamas come into me and they're like, I don't want to, pass on generational trauma. And I'm like, I hear you. I respect it. It's such a common fear to have. And it's like, the way to do that is by embodying what you're preaching. Right. And so you really took that with that story of, having the pressure cooker. I'm thinking from a business mindset, like, okay, now I have to pivot. Now there's this new thing here on the market, and maybe I have to switch up my messaging so that I can continue to have fortitude and continue this thing going. And that is something, business owner or not, that you will face in life. Here's this new shiny opportunity.
Yeah.
Does it align with me? I mean,
Yeah.
at that point, you're figuring it out. So it's not a clear no just yet. You're
Yeah.
like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe. But I love that you took the time. That's what it sounds like, to just
Yeah.
sit and you tried it. You tried the pressure cooker,
Yeah.
and it just wasn't for you. And for me, the bravery, I think bravery and courageousness because this was something that was working for you.
Yeah.
So it's like, why would you want to screw that up? You
Yeah.
know?
Well, so one, I'm very privileged that I do need to acknowledge that I have been married for 25 years and Adam is amazeballs in all of the ways. And I am also naturally frugal.
Okay.
So a lot of the successes that I had financially, we squirreled away.
Okay.
Like for realsies, which then made baby money and all of that stuff. So I am fortunate
Mm.
in
Thank
that
you for
way
sharing that.
that it was a financial choice to kind of turn off the money stream in order to pivot to something brand spanking new. I am not the best businessy type person. So that's why I was a little hesitant to be a mentor on the blocks, because
Mm.
while I am an entrepreneur and I do have business accolades, first and foremost, I actually consider myself, if someone asks like, who are you? I literally, my identity is wrapped in being a mom and raising this future generation. And all of my decisions have been filtered through what's best for the family, what's best for the kids. And I won't chase financial success in any way if it is detrimental to my family. So it's interesting. Right before we hit record, I took a screenshot of something, and I wanted, and it, so I have old lady eyes, so I'm gonna put it away. But it says something like, "For those of you who have reached financial success, how," and blah blah blah, he says, "I'm torn because I have reached a marker of financial success, but along the journey I made many decisions that negatively impacted my family, one divorce and one
Mm.
estranged adult child later. I feel a lot of guilt
Mm.
and there's a whole host of issues, blah blah blah." And he says, "My 99% no contact child is planning to go to grad
Oh,
school." So
that's sad. Yeah.
that, and it's interesting because I too work with women, and I've now done this long enough that I've worked with people on both sides. I've worked with women in their 60s who say their adult
Mm.
children have cut me off and there's been no warning signs. I'm like, well, let's
Mm.
poke at that a little bit. And then
Mm.
I've also, in different families, it's not all the same family, but different
Sure.
people, and it's from the adult child perspective, maybe someone in their 20s or 30s, and has decided in order to protect themselves and their own mental health and then their own future family, it's better to go kind of no contact or low contact with
That
the
happens a lot, especially with the 20 and 30-year-olds.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but it's interesting. Like this person is writing in a business forum saying, how do you reconcile the guilt? So now I have the money and I have these financial accolades. How do you so I personally would not be able to. I would be a shell of a person.
Yeah. I mean, oh, there's so much good like things to go into from that. So that's a beautiful quote. And I feel almost like sentimental hearing it. It's like that's sad. It's sad. It's like, yes, congratulations, success in your business. But for what? You know, if our life outside of business isn't fruitful. And this man is obviously a father, so it's like those are your children. Like, how could you not have communication with them, right? And so, my thoughts. So, the healthy high performer. I am someone who is your stereotypical type A person, high achiever, all the things, and I've always been that way, very much in a pressure cooker manner. It was a forced. I always say, you know, I thank the ego
Mm,
for allowing me, because I wouldn't have gotten to where I have been had it not been for those experiences that
yeah.
molded my childhood and upbringing in high school and like being a part of all the clubs and doing all the things. And like you said, it's not a one size fits all. Even if you're not that way, there's pros and cons to everything, right? And so I still honor my journey of unlearning,
Yeah.
right? And that's where I stand now, where it's like I'm a mom of two little ones. I have a 1 and a 2 year old.
Mm,
So I'm in like the beginning of motherhood, and they need me the most right now,
they do.
right? And so in 2020, when everything was kind of going online, it was just a good opportunity for me to say, like, do I want to transition from the therapist world to a coach? What would that look like? What would an online business look like? It was just really just a lot of question marks. And that was when my spiritual journey began. I was raised Catholic. But 2020 and what was happening in the world, like it introduced new pathways for me. And so I was big on law of attraction and manifestation and all of that. And this new concept for me at that time, which was divine femininity and slowness and letting things come to you, was a complete backwards way of thinking, because my whole life it was like, no, you want something, you work hard, you get it,
Hmm.
you know? And so I often explain it as like a pendulum swing for me, because I was so in my masculine when I was finding out about the feminine. Um, it took some time, but I completely went left of
Yeah.
like, F the masculine, I hate this world, like I've been doing it wrong the whole time, you know, not honoring my past. I'm in a better place now,
Good.
you know, and, but I say all that because even before I got pregnant, I envisioned that me and my husband would be stay-at-home working parents, which we now are,
Okay. So
right?
so that
That
is hats off to manifestation. You did that. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, at that time we were both out of the house working just regular jobs, you know. And yeah, I would write in my journal every single day, like, thank you, universe, thank you, God. I'm so happy that I'm able to watch my children's milestones and we have health in the home and we're both, you know, at our jobs. And I'm blessed to see right now that I work full time in the business, but my hours are about 20 hours a week.
Mm,
So still
good for
very,
you.
very much a stay-at-home, you know, mom. I'm
Yeah.
doing both, right? And I love when you said that it's not a one size fits all, because what I've actually learned that for me, I love working. And so I could never imagine for me a life where I was being a stay-at-home mom 100% of the time. That would, and no, nothing against anyone who is doing that, but that just wouldn't fulfill me.
Yeah. I think I have similar markers. Um
Okay.
uh and a lot of it is your definition of success. Success for most, and we happen to live in a capitalistic society, um and we do need money to buy things. So
Yeah. Yeah.
and also I was raising three girls and I didn't want them to think that, one, girls can't do things, and that daddy is the only one who can make money. So it was important also for me to
Mm,
have my own money coming in and finances. So I completely and totally agree with you. And also that definition of fulfillment is completely different from every person. And you describe that pendulum. First of all, becoming a mom is literally earth shattering. Everything you've known in the past
Hmm.
is kind of ceases to exist while you're stepping into this new role and giving
Absolutely.
yourself grace and space to acknowledge that and not dismiss it. And because that's where gaslighting comes in, that's where that like toxic positivity comes in. I want you to feel every single feeling you have and acknowledge it, but then only act on the facts. Because
Mm.
if you're feeling less than, if you're feeling unworthy or something, and then you globalize in your head that this is how I am, it could just be a hormonal swing here. It could just be a bad day. This is when people
Mm.
irrationally go and they chop off all their hair and then the next day they regret it. And so you don't want to do that in your actual life. You don't want to blow up relationships. You don't want to traumatize the kids too much and that kind of stuff. One other really thing when you were talking, um, about your Catholic upbringing and then finding the law of attraction and the kind of wooedness.
Yeah.
I like all of that. And what's interesting, especially if you were raised in the church and in a certain set of quote unquote rules that you had to
Yep.
follow in order to be a good person. And
Yeah.
then as an adult, you
Hmm.
realize, there's actual people out there who follow these rules and they are
They're
not
not
good
good
people.
people.
And
Yup.
that's a little earth
Hmm.
shattering. And
Yeah.
that again, acknowledge that. Like don't dismiss any thoughts or feelings you have. Um poke at them and really realize that maybe there's grown-ups in my life who preached this at me, and maybe they had, I don't know, different interests or their own self-interest, and there's unfortunately scam artists and bad people out there. So acknowledge that and don't think that there was anything wrong with you for maybe falling for something or anyway, pay attention to that. One other
Yeah.
thing, you had also talked about your ego and letting your ego sometimes get the better of you. So I'm a huge acronym junkie. That's just how my brain works. I'm just constantly trying to make up acronyms. But I had
Yeah.
heard an acronym for ego, and it comes from Alan Cohen, and he writes the Course on Miracles. Easy. And it's edging God out. So when you're only thinking of yourself and not
Mm,
this
that is
huge
so
like
true.
global thing, regardless
Yes.
of your religion, it's like just know that there's you,
Edging
and then
God
there's
out.
the
I love that.
universe or God or whatever. And I like to use the affirmation of the universe will meet me halfway. Like I'll do my part,
Mm,
but then other
yes.
things have to
Yes.
come in
Yes.
place. So and that does help if you're type A. Absolutely. Do the things that you think you need to do in
Yeah.
order for the universe to meet you halfway, but don't overdo it. Don't think
Mhm.
like I'm going to run a mile. Oh, but it'll even be better if I run 10 miles, and I suck if I didn't run 10 miles. A mile is a
Yeah.
mile. It totally counts.
You're right. I'm laughing because that's definitely the way that my brain, I literally have to retrain and recoach myself of like, this is enough. Right. And I think it's so funny because right now, this will air once I make it public, but we're moving. And me and my family are moving and super excited. I can't wait to share more about it. But it was super aligned and super, I would say, spiritual and
Mm-hmm.
intuitive move. It came literally out of left field. This is week from contemplation to like, let's do this thing. We're on day 14 and all of
Nice.
our boxes are packed.
Yeah. So,
And
and I love that. I too have an exact same similar story, but I want to point out and give you gold stars. You were a
oh,
coiled snake, ready to pounce at a good opportunity. So you did a lot of legwork. And sometimes people think like overnight success or oh, they did it like
yeah.
so quickly. Like please give yourself credit and your husband credit for all of the ducks you got in a line for a long time
Thank
leading to
you.
this 14 days.
Thank you. Yeah, well, yes, actually, me and my husband were talking yesterday. So we were a little stressed, to be frank, of like all the moving pieces and like, it went from excitement of like, we're moving to like, holy shit, we're moving. Like, we have to do things. And so I love what you say, and I'm going to bring it back into like business in a second because I do think that you were a perfect coach for the blocks, even though you don't think you're very, in the business because we need the other side. So I'm going to go into that in a little bit, but I want to mention yeah, so me and my husband were having a conversation yesterday and we were talking about, I'm going to air quote problems. They're not problems, they're challenges,
Hmm.
right? That we're now facing in our stage of life, right? And although I was stressed, we took a pause and I was like, babe, we would have never spoken about these challenges 2 years ago. Like the fact that we're yes, we're a little stressed and it's a little bit of a maneuvering piece of how everything's going to work out. We're now in a better place to handle bigger decisions like this,
Hmm.
right? And so I honored that because for me, as you, this is my spiritual take on things too when you up level in life and whatever that may be for you, and yes, in our society, very capitalistic, that often accrues or aligns with more income, right? Spiritually, I also think that, income is currency and currency is energy, right? And so, yes, we do have more money than what we had 2 years ago. And so we're able to make, let's say, bigger moves at this time. But it was all due to how good are we at managing the small problems, handling that, and then now being able to manage bigger problems, right? And so I've spoken to so many beautiful entrepreneurs on different stages of their life, many people who have quote unquote made it, right? And the message is always the same. The problems don't necessarily go away. You get better at managing bigger problems. And so for me as a coach and what I do in this leg of my business, which is coaching entrepreneurs, is yeah, how can we have a more spiritual take on it, a more grounded approach to life so that you can manage your emotions, emotional regulation skills, so that you're not like and heavy all the time pressure cooker lifestyle to be successful, right? And so I do think that your perspective on life and being a mother, that was your energy too, this very loving motherly energy. Business one, two, threes, SOPs, like it is so important. You cannot dismiss the masculine part of business. But I will say that if you're only riding on that notion, it's going to get very hectic.
Yeah.
It is going to be a pressure cooker. And for me, in my experience, if you can master the feminine, a little bit more of a flowy lifestyle, putting your true desires first, then applying the one, two, threes, most people that I attract into my business, they're smart cookies,
Hmm.
right? Like you can figure it out. You are very successful in other ways of your life.
Hmm.
Learning business, it's not so much hard, it's a numbers game,
Yeah.
right? And so you're tweaking here, you're tweaking there, you're figuring out what works and what you need during that time of evolution, of growth, of expansion, whatever you want to do with your business, right? It's like, are you taking care of yourself while you're
Hmm.
doing this?
Yeah. So the acronym that I like to use for slow and slow living is simply look only within.
I love that.
And if you're going too fast, you're not looking within. And so you had talked about like playing the game. So there's the game of life, and then there's shoots and ladders. If you pause, this is not
Mm,
shoots and ladders. You are not sliding downhill. You are fine. You are
mm.
not behind. So put your blinders on. Stop paying attention to what other people are doing because you are truly, truly playing your own game. And so sometimes that means maybe disconnecting from social media for a while or hiring it out. So if you're a
Yes.
brand, I'm a brand and I have to be on social media, it's not good for me. It's like literally not good for
Yeah.
me. So I have someone else who does it, to the point where she's so good now that my sister-in-law was direct messaging and literally thought she was talking to me. I'm like, no, 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 you text me. Don't message me through Instagram. Text me. Um, but
That's amazing.
yeah, well, and it's so funny. Guess I need to list out who people I really know in real life are for my social media manager. but um,
Yeah.
but but it's so tricky when you're in business, and you're focused on the numbers and the data. So I also work in an elementary school. So my day job is I'm a school site secretary, and it's interesting because there is a big push of you're not an entrepreneur if you have a day job. And I have found
I really want to talk to you about that. Yeah.
I have found for me personally, I'm actually a better entrepreneur for having a day job because there's reliable income coming in no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And so because of that, I can take bigger risks and I can
Yeah.
become more creative. They do not pay me at my day job as a school site secretary to be creative in any way. So I can
Mm,
save all my creative juices for coaching and writing and teaching. And also, this is probably why the state of California is going bankrupt. You get a pension, and turning down free money for the rest of my life and for future generations isn't something that I want
mm,
to do. And I get summers off and blah blah blah, and my kids are older. So that said, put a pin in it.
mm-hmm.
Back to data and data driven. There's a huge push in public education right now to make data driven decisions.
Mm.
And I can see how it's stressing my teachers out and the school site.
There's no heart.
So parents want that. Parents, well, they think they want that. They don't actually maybe
Yeah.
know what they want. They think they want really good test scores. They think they want the best of the best of the best. But it's not serving the whole need of the child. And earlier when we first hit record, I said that my whole idea when I brought this little baby being home from the hospital, and really they don't teach you all that much. They want to make sure you've got a car seat in the car. And then other than that, you're like literally on your own. I wanted to raise a future healthy adult human, an adult human.
Yeah.
And so this kind of data driven lifestyle, it doesn't really mean anything. Chasing good grades, chasing gold stars, chasing letters behind your name, great. That can fulfill a certain need and a want at the moment and at
Yeah.
the time, but it will not make you actually feel fulfilled and make you feel worthy. What will do that is going within. So back to simply look only within. Ask yourself the
Mm,
uncomfortable questions that maybe you've been scared to actually answer of what do I really want? Like, do I really, really want like this particular car or this particular house? Or is it because I think other people think that means I'm successful? So really decide. For me, I want to lay in the
mm,
backyard and literally look at clouds with my children. I can do that anywhere. I don't need to be in a fancy resort hotel. I can do that camping. I can do that at the neighborhood park for free. So
yeah.
really just really taking the time to ask yourself the deep questions. And if you're uncomfortable with that, that's actually something to kind of circle and highlight and realize, okay, I need to actually do this hard work here instead of like
Mm-hmm.
dismissing it or numbing it out. Lots of us are numbing out our thoughts and our feelings with social media, with alcohol, with drugs, with any sort of
With
distraction
busyness.
and busyness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I love, and I fully align with all that you're saying. You know, SLOW, simply look only within. Yes. Yeah. I also love that ego. Yeah. So I meant to say, sorry, there's just so many good
I know
topics to
I've
talk
got
about.
I was an acronym junkie growing up, and it was funny. It actually stems back to I was 8 or so, and my grandfather was in the military, and he retired military, and he told me what snafu meant, which is situation, normal, all, and then effed up. But he said the actual bad word to me as an 8-year old, and the idea that a bad word was hiding inside of another word was like so
Oh, that's
mind
really
blowing.
cool and interesting. I love that. I love that. You know what's funny? As you were talking, I also had a childhood memory pop up when you were talking about something we were talking about, like it was religion, Catholicism, and then science, because law of attraction and all of that. And for me, I went to a Catholic school, so I had a religion classroom and then I had a science classroom. And I remember there was one particular day where they were just teaching us how to switch classrooms. Before it was like teachers came to you and now we were going to them. And so I think it was like in sixth grade, and my science classroom was on the left hand side and the religion one was on the right hand side. And I remember switching over, and what the two teachers were saying were completely contradictory. And my curious brain was like, what's going on here? Why are they saying that this is the way that the world was? And then in the other room, it was like, no, this is the way that the world is, right? And I wasn't so much mad, but I was more curious. And that's been my whole thing too. It's what I teach my clients, like, just be curious. There's no judgment here. I'm not here to point you out wrong. It's just like, I wonder why you see it this way, and I wonder why they see it that way. And for me, the deeper I dove into spirituality or the woo stuff, right, I was like, this is science, and science is spirituality. For me, it's very much the same. It's just different wordings to explain things. And now I actually appreciate many different religions. I don't practice, but I'm very intrigued into how this part of the world sees X thing. And for me, you can only become more knowledgeable by having this curiosity factor of learning how other people see things, right? And so there really is no one right way, wrong way. It's like, well, what suits you best? What methodology, what theory makes you feel good and aligned and centered? Do that. All right. And so now I'm off topic.
No, you're not. No, you're not off topic in any way. It is. And also for the moms and parents out there listening, your kids are really kind of naturally inquisitive and intuitive. And if you
Yeah.
can sort of model that, like kind of step into that childlike wonder, again, as an adult with all of your body of wisdom in your brain, but look at it with childlike eyes, that will be helpful to kind of decide, well, what is it that I really want?
Yeah. What is it that I really want? That's what, so you mentioned wanting to simply be looking at the sky, at the clouds with your daughters, right? And that's beautiful. And usually, yes, when we slow down, it's like, well, what do you actually want in life? And so, oh, I want, let's say, the working backwards. So I want, a car so I can have this, or I want this nice house so I can have this. I'm like, okay, what will that house grant you? Oh, we'd have the space, do whatever. I'm like, okay, what would you do with that space? And then you go down and it's usually focused on an emotion that you'd like to have and feel, right? And so what's the emotion of looking at the clouds with your daughters? What does that give you?
Mm-hmm.
Joy, happiness, right? And so it's like, yeah, those things are only within, and you can practice feeling those things right now. And so, yeah, none of this, it's a duality because we still have bills to pay, right? I can't just pretend that money isn't an important factor. It most definitely is, right? Um, my whole life, I was always like crunching, working so hard for the next dollar. And my family, we grew up middle class family, so we too, privileged monetarily. Like we never asked for anything, but it was the mindset behind what was needed for me to do to be successful, quote unquote, that I never felt safe with money. I never felt like it was enough, right? Even though I've had a job and making my own money since I was like 15, and so I bring that up because today, what I am still working through, and I teach my clients too, it's like, how can we have a balance of we are, and you spoke about this earlier, like you are still taking aligned action. You can't just sit on your butt and expect things to come your way, right? So you still have to do the hard work. You still have to plan and strategize and all the things, but there has to be a point, and I want you to talk about that a little bit more, where you do surrender and you can not even confidently say, in an empowered fashion, say, this is enough.
Mm-hmm. So, yes to all the things. Do you remember when you said that you had journaled an awful lot, and then that is how you and your husband for your 14-day move were able to kind of spring into action? On my site, so it's at stephanieodea.com/daily, DAILY, and I'm sure we can link to it. There's a
Yeah.
daily guided journaling worksheet. And
Love that.
the very first question I ask is what you touched upon. And I say, how do you want to feel today? And then the next question is, how are
Mm,
you going to get there? And then I teach a
mm.
coursing a coaching course, and I walk my clients through it. It's called the Peace Pyramid. And so the bottom level is time management, health, and finances. And then you go up a level and it's organization and
Oh, I love this. Now I'm
relationships.
understanding how your love for acronyms is really,
Yeah.
it's also very organizational and it does
Yeah.
help people get to their intended goals. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. And
Okay.
then that
Okay.
the tiny little the teeniest piece is peace. Because people usually want to step into a feeling of calm, of peace, of
Yeah.
happy. Like happy. Like what will make you happy?
Right.
And it's tricky because sometimes we want that quick serotonin kind of dopamine release of like, oh, I'm just gonna down a shot of tequila and then I'll be happy. Okay, so great. But that's fleeting and probably it's not gonna actually help you achieve whatever goals it is. And we are a goal driven society. We have to live here. So yes, you can go off grid and homestead and all of that kind of stuff, but also you still need to work. Like you still need to do the
Hmm.
things on the homestead in order to have enough food to eat and that kind of stuff. So yeah,
Absolutely.
so humans are not passive. We're not a captive animal in a cage where someone is going to feed us. We have to actually do some things here and
I love that
acknowledge
analogy, actually. Yes.
and
Yeah.
acknowledging that and like it is what it is, and you can be upset and you can be mad and you can think it's not fair, and I as a coach, and I'm sure you would too, would ask for you to honor that. Go ahead, have a
Yeah.
rage session, go be pissed at the world, I'm fine with that, and then
Yeah.
get it out of your system and realize, okay, now it's time for me to suck it up, buttercup. Like
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah, I think it's actually empowering. I love just, I had the picture when you said we're not encaged animals where things are just fed to us. And I'm like, yeah, actually, we're empowered beings who have free will and who have the intelligence behind the free will to actually make something great of our lives, whatever that is to you, right? And there's so much power within us. Only look within, right? There's so much power
See,
within us.
we're going so full circle,
Yes,
Jaleesa.
I love this conversation. Right up my alley, and actually exactly what I needed today. It was a beautiful reminder of all the
Oh,
things. Yeah, so yeah, no, we're not encaged animals, and we can very much create the life of our dreams. And that's also part of the reason, behind my Healthy High Performers branding. It's like you can do all the things. I want you to be successful. If you want a huge business that impacts thousands of lives, let's do it. I'm here for it. I want that too. I think that we're doing that. We're building it, right? And so that is also very fulfilling. And I don't have to be the one that does it all for that to happen. I can work strategically and smart. And I think in order for a CEO to do that, you do have to slow down. You have to be able to pause and be at the mountaintop and look ahead or
mm-hmm.
beyond the horizon. I'm like, how could this actually work better for me? Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe that would mean that I would have to hire out, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, a lot of my earlier entrepreneurs might say, well, I don't have the money for that right now. It's like, okay, but how can we plan for that to be a near sight reality,
Yeah.
right? And, then we figure out logistics, but it doesn't have to be so, well, then I have to work 30 hours more. And it's like,
Right.
or we could find a smarter way to make this happen.
Yeah. Um, absolutely. And I do think that you will find in history that the best CEOs were visionaries who gave themselves lots of daydreaming space
Time.
and pontification, and sometimes people call it navel grazing or gazing, and they make it seem like it's a bad thing. No, that's lovely and wonderful. I mean, I am never as calm as I am when I'm on my yoga mat with a nice hot cup of coffee, which maybe sounds weird, but I journal and drink my coffee and do yoga
Mm.
stretches all at the same time because, again, totally type A. But I'm not necessarily trying to get in a workout. It's a meditation-y thing, and it's really funny because you had talked about being type A. sometimes people come to me and they say they can't meditate or they don't know how because their brain is too bouncy and busy. And so that's okay. Like, but
Yeah,
don't be dismissive and think that it has to be one way or you're doing it wrong. And I think that's
absolutely.
sometimes with like perfectionist driven personalities, they really do think there's only one right answer to quote unquote pass the test. No. Like, you all are getting an A. You all are getting all of the gold stars. You have to play truly your own game. And yes, I would like you to journal. And yes, I would like you to roll out your yoga mat. But you don't have to look like that Instagram lady in order to be doing meditation and yoga correctly. Like it's your
Absolutely.
own thing.
Yeah, yeah. The act of being uncomfortable as you think that you're quote unquote not doing it well is enough insight to take you beyond, right? So, yeah, Steph, we've hit so many beautiful gold nuggets. I always reserve the last couple of minutes for just deep vulnerability.
Mm,
I love to showcase that, this is the podcast, mindset mastery. Like, yes, we're masters of a certain part of our lives, but there's still other things that we're still very much figuring out. Um, and I think for me too, I mentioned on a prior episode, just quick insight, when I interview men versus women, stereotypically, men are more in their masculine, and it just
mhm.
depends what kind of women I'm interviewing. Sometimes we're heavy in the masculine too. But when this part of the conversation comes up, it's interesting, and I already know you're not going to probably go this route, but it's interesting and it's all love because sometimes we'll share a quote unquote vulnerability in a way that we think that we could still teach others, and so it
Mm,
doesn't come off too vulnerable. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah.
well, don't do that, And so, and that's okay. It's just a reflection of where that specific person is on their healing journey, and I honor it. It's all good. So yeah, it's just I love this is my favorite part of the episode, and I would just love to hear, and support and just hold space and give love as to a part of your life right now. It could be business, personal, motherhood, whatever. That is a struggle boat at this time, and we're maneuvering.
Interesting. So, do you know the show Malcolm in the Middle?
I know it. I haven't watched it.
Okay. So I grew up watching that show, and it's on Hulu. So my
Okay.
youngest, who's still home, is 14. And so she pulled it up. And last night it was so triggery to me that I had to leave the room, and I actually like broke down crying because the
Mm.
mom in that is such a yeller that it bubbled
Mm.
up all of this like childhood emotion and uncomfortableness. And I don't know why. I think it was probably just the sign of the times that there was a lot of yelling. And it just was so upsetting and triggery. And then it was sort of this like wave of relief and emotion that I know that I didn't do that. And it was kind of a relief. And because I'm around children all day at this school, I can actually see in real time psychological damage happening in front of me. And
Mm.
and the jury's still out. Like, I have great kids right now, but I would never profess to know all things parenting wise, because I think in life you learn and you pivot and you grow, and if you've made a mistake you acknowledge and apologize. um but I think former parenting was not that way. It was my way or the highway. And
Very much
watching
so.
this television show of just this woman just like yelling and berating, and it was a character written for television, but it was just so triggering. Like, the kid was like in the fetal position, like, stop yelling at
Mm.
me. And it
Oh.
brought up so much just uncomfortable angst. And so anyway, all of that to be said,
Mm.
if you are a full-fledged grown-up human and you don't think you have healed from your own childhood, and you had talked really early on when we hit record that some women come to you and they want to break generational trauma and they don't.
Trauma.
So acknowledge that, and really, really look within and try and heal that. So when you do know better, you can hopefully try to do better and help this next generation become solid humans who then hopefully do help create a better world for us all to live in. I mean, it sounds so cliche, but that little snippet of television last night really kind of awakened something within me, and that I'm like,
Yeah.
this can't continue. You can't shout and assert your authority on other humans in this way.
Yeah. I think you said it beautifully when you were telling the story. First of all, thank you for sharing. And for me, I was like, well, this is also a testament of Stephanie's healing journey, right? For me, I use the word resiliency not because we want to bounce back faster per se, but they're depending on where people are in their healing journey, the processing time and like the awakening of like, well, what was this supposed to teach me? It may take a little bit longer, and that's fine. But when people can usually come around to it rather quickly, it's like, okay, this person has been doing inner work. They're able to put pieces together and have revelations in a shorter amount of time, right? So for you, it was here we are being triggered by this television show, right? We leave the room, we handle ourselves, try to regulate our emotions, and then actually have a moment of gratitude, right? Where, oh my God, this maybe was my upbringing, and that did trigger me, but I'm so happy that I'm not doing that in my children's lives today, right? And also still honoring that a younger version of you is still healing that past, right? And so you said something about, like you said, oh yes, a lot of mothers come and they don't want to repeat generational trauma. I always define motherhood as a beautiful mirror that's very personalized um, to your specific upbringing, your culture, your traditions, mindset, all of that. Because while motherhood for me will teach me so many things, and I think every mother, but it's in our own special, unique way of our own intrinsic families and how that all plays a part, right? Because what you want for your offspring, and I'm even thinking, I haven't had the chance to work with anyone who has adopted children, but I would imagine that it would be similar, that you want these children, your babies, to have a little bit of a different upbringing than what you had in the best way possible, right? And so, my children trigger me all the time in the best way possible. I see my natural ingrained tendencies of reacting,
Mm-hmm.
and then I have to work really hard to reverse that. And there's parts of self that, like, you think you've conquered and you think you've done the work and all, and the work is never done, but it's a beautiful evolution because my kids are little, and so my oldest is going to be 3 in a couple of weeks, and so he has a pretty good vocabulary. I think he speaks a lot, and so now it's changing, right? Like the way that he triggers me isn't in his my 1 year old. She's like throwing things, at the wall, and but now he's talking and he's saying certain things, and so I honor that evolution. And I'm bringing that all up because motherhood is that. You have you have a high schooler, you have a college student, like they're probably still doing things that make you look within
Mm-hmm.
yet again.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it starts early with motherhood. That if you aren't confident and healed yourself, you'll find yourself triggered. I mean, I remember going to like a baby gym class, and people were like, "Oh, your baby's not sitting up yet," and somehow
Oh yeah.
I felt
Yeah,
less
yeah,
than
yeah.
oh shit,
Yeah,
so don't say bad words, but
that's
like I'm
okay.
not doing enough core work with my infant, and like
Yes,
I really
yes,
felt judged,
yeah.
and yes, it's so interesting. I brought this up with my husband this morning. Eleanor Roosevelt has that famous quote of "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." And for the longest
Mm,
time, I took that
love
to
that.
heart because I was feeling inferior. And so I was like, well, it's my fault. But sometimes people are, and I want to say another bad word. Sometimes people are assholes.
Yes.
And that's not on you. So
Right.
sometimes you feel inferior, and Eleanor Roosevelt is wonderful and has done amazing things with her life. But that quote really actually made me feel really bad about myself for a long time until I realized, I could disconnect from certain people, or I could disconnect from certain things and really honor who I am. And so there you go. We went full circle again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This has been a beautiful conversation, Stephanie. Thank you so much for your words, your wisdom, your energy. I feel very grounded and centered, and the rest of my workday is going to go phenomenal. So I thank you for that. And everyone, you can connect with Stephanie. We'll have the links in the show notes. Stephanie, before we close, any last words of love, insight, or wisdom that you want to share with our audience today?
No, but I really appreciate being here, and I'm so happy. So we got to have breakfast together, and it was just
Yeah.
oh, I could sit in this airport diner with Jaleesa forever and ever and ever. So it was
Oh,
lovely. So good luck with your move. Lift with
thank
your legs,
you.
not your back. Um,
Thank you.
and hug on those babies.
I definitely will. All right, Stephanie, until next time. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning into Mindset Mastery with Julissa Edwards. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast to receive future episodes packed with valuable insights. Remember to follow us on social media at thehealthy.highperformer for more inspiration, tips, and updates. If you found this episode helpful, we'd appreciate it if you could share it with your network and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support means the world to us as we continue to empower high performers like you. Until next time, keep mastering your mindset and thriving as a healthy high performer.